What's up guys? Welcome back for another video. If you guys remember, in the first video we did on this series, we mounted this rail onto my receiver. For this video we are going to be mounting my Hawke optic scope onto this gun with some RPM rings. First off, just want to do a little safety check just to make sure the gun is not loaded. Reaching out with the finger visually, and then also make sure the gun is on safety. To start off, I want to make sure this gun's level. Forward, back, left, and right. I have this dual leveling system from Wheeler Engineering. It's pretty handy as far as when it comes to leveling guns. I'm going to double check this. That is pretty dang level front to back. And we are about level right there. Alrighty. And then we will do a little more leveling once we get there. As far as today goes, we're going to be mounting these RPM rings onto this rail and then throwing the scope on there and going through all of that. A few things I wanted to highlight on these rings. They are 100% made in America. They're out of Arizona, veteran owned. They are super lightweight. As far as building a hunting rifle, every little piece you put on it, you want to make sure you're conscious of the weight. Another thing, an integrated bubble. When you're shooting, they talk a lot about it at RPM. About your cant in your rifle when you're shooting. That can affect it more than you'd think, and so being able to just look up while you're staying shouldered on your rifle, check to make sure you're level, and then go ahead and make that shot, which is a super big thing. And then also they're super easy. They have all the instructions back here as far as torque settings. They give you a piece to tighten everything down, so make sure to go check these out. I have a code, it's OWH10, and it will save you guys some money on those rings, so make sure to go check them out. Alrighty, so our gun is leveled here. We're going to throw these rings on. So the one with the bubble is the one that goes on the back of the ring. We're not going to tighten these down all the way right now. Right now we're just going to get a good idea of where our scope is going to sit, and then also check our eye relief. Alrighty, so I think that might be a good idea of where the rings will sit as far as my scope goes. Now we're going to check the eye relief. Basically what you're going to do is shoulder the rifle. I like to put it on max magnification just because most of the time when you're hunting you like to crank that thing up, and so just make sure you get that full sight picture. So what I like to do is pick up the rifle, shoulder it while you're closing your eyes, and then open your eyes and see where it is. Make sure you don't have a black ring in it. That feels pretty good right about there. I like that. A little trick that I saw is to mark with a pencil where your scope sits on your rings. Just makes it easier for when you're putting them back in, and also the rings are going to cover these little marks up. So mark it with a pencil just to make it easier on me a little bit later. Check our level again. And with this dual Wheeler Engineering bubbling system, we have our perfect level here. We're not going to be able to keep this level here once we've mounted our rifle. And so what we can do is throw this level onto our barrel and line it up with the bubble on the receiver. So we're going to tighten this down evenly. And the nice thing about this leveling system, on this barrel level, it has a micro adjuster. So you tighten it down tight on the barrel, and then you can play with this on top just to make sure you are perfectly level. Alrighty, that is pretty dang close. So now we can take this off and always check our level up here. Alrighty, so we're going to put these rings on. I always like to use Loctite. So we are going to put a dab of blue Loctite onto these cross bolts. A little goes a long ways. I even like to dab it off a little bit. double check I put that in the right spot. Alrighty, and as far as torque spec goes, like I said, it says on the back of this box, these cross bolts are 45 inch-pounds. So we're going to get our fat wrench from Wheeler Engineering. Make sure we are at 45. This is just a 1/2 inch socket. Here. And this will cam over once we hit that 45 inch-pounds right there. So there's one. There. That should be 45 inch-pounds. Perfect. Alrighty, so those rings are set in place. So now we're going to set this scope back in here. Also, as far as these rings go, a lot of people think you have to lap these rings. RPM, they have such high tolerance in their manufacturing that they're going to come better than you could ever do with lapping. So I'm not going to have to worry about that. I don't think you really should. Maybe quite a few years ago it'd be beneficial, but I think now it's just another step that is going to get you the same result. So we're going to put these rings on top. I'm not going to tighten them down all the way. Right now I'm just going to make sure we're level, and then we can also adjust it a little bit more once we get everything on. Alright, switch this over to the bit that came with the rings. I'm literally just going to touch these down. Anytime I'm tightening these down, you kind of want to watch the gapping on the side. Like I said, more importantly when you're really tightening them down. But right now I'm just going to touch them down so we can still have some play in it and adjust our scope a little bit more. Alright, so as you can see we have a little bit of play in our scope. That is good because we're going to adjust it a little bit more. Alright, when leveling your scope, so we're going to level it with this because this is where our rifle is level. I'm going to take off this cap just to make sure we get a very true flat surface. Right. We're going to double check on the eye relief. So I like that right about there. Make sure that stays level. So now we're going to level our scope in accordance with the level on the front. So make sure that's level and our scope. That looks pretty dang level right there. Alrighty, so I want to put some Loctite on these screws on top. So I'm going to take off 2 at a time, Loctite them, take off the other 2 kind of in a crisscross formation, but then wait to tighten everything down because you want to tighten down everything down evenly. That way you don't have any abnormal gapping on the sides of your rings. So, and then also the torque spec for these cap screws are 18 inch-pounds. So go ahead and adjust our fat wrench down to 18 inch-pounds. And I will double check everything once I get these screws back in. Got that one in. Watch those, and then we move to the front ring. Take off these rings, or take off the screws, sorry. And tighten these down. Alright, so now that all of the screws are in the rings with the Loctite, now we're going to start tightening it down. Like I said, we want to double check our level to make sure we are perfectly level in line with the level in the barrel. That looks pretty dang good right about there. And a good idea is to keep an eye on your levels while you are tightening it down. And like I said, be aware of your gapping on your rings. So this left side has quite a bit more gap. So you want to tighten that down and go in a crisscross formation, kind of just evenly touching them down, and then we will start to torque them down. That pin gap looks a little more on the right side, so tighten it down a little bit more over here. Since that one wasn't closing quite a bit, I'm going to back these off on the left side so we can get that pin gap closed, or sorry, not the pin gap, the ring gap closed. That looks pretty even right about there, so we're going to touch everything down. Double check on everything. That looks pretty good right there. All right, important to know the torque spec of your rings, because one thing you don't want to do is crush the tube of the scope. Scopes, they're not the most, I mean, they are durable, but they're filled with glass, and so enough compression on the tube can actually break it, and so you want to be careful with that. So like I said, set to 18 inch-pounds, keeping an eye on our level, and those both look a little bit level. They just moved it in the vise. Those both look still pretty dang good. So that cammed over there. Going evenly, cammed over. That cammed over, and that cammed over. Look, keeping an eye on those gaps, they look pretty even. Alrighty, so that looks level. And there we have a mounted scope. So, like I said, these cross bolts are tightened to spec. The rings, the screws on the rings are tightened to spec. We are level, and we can check a bunch of different places on here. That ring, we are level, and everything looks good. So there we go, guys. Hopefully this helps you mount your own scope. Like I said, there's not too much included. It's just a lot of little details and a few parts that you need. So make sure to subscribe. I'm going to be trying to do a few more of these gear videos, working on your bow, gun, whatever it is, just to prepare you guys more for the mountains and for those hunts that everyone is excited about. So make sure to go check all these out, especially the rings. I've partnered up with RPM. They've been great to me. I'm going to be using their rings, and honestly, they're the best rings I've had. So make sure to go check all these out. Subscribe to the channel, go check out Instagram, and we'll see you on the next one.